Episode 1 of Alien Earth begins as on board the USCSS Maginot, which is part of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. The year is 2120 and this current mission has been ongoing for 65 years. The Maginot is a deep research vessel and has been collecting specimens for a good while now, both dead and alive. They're still 805 million miles out from Earth, just roughly about 4 months away, but the crew awakens from their cryosleep to serve as exposition devices to explain the state of the world. There are 4 companies, but the new kids on the block, Prodigy, aim to change the established order of power. All of these guys are vying for power and control on Earth. Beyond that, Dynamic, one of the companies, controls the moon, while Yutani controls Mars and Saturn. The Maginot is carrying some pretty nasty specimens that we've become familiar with now. There are facehuggers, alien eggs, space slugs, and more. One of the engineers suggests they just shoot the specimens and be done with it, but Morrow, a synth, is quick to point out that's out of the question, given the core part of their mission are these very specimens. On Earth though, we get a closer look at Prodigy. They have their own research island, dubbed Neverland, off from the mainland. Boy Cavalier is the one who's running things here, who happens to be a trillionaire who's in the business of simps and cloning. His latest experiment involves moving the brain of a sick girl called Marcy into the body of a synthetic dubbed Wendy. The operation appears to be a success and a new human/synth hybrid is born. Marcy is still adjusting to her adult synthetic body though, but she can fall from great heights without injury, run super fast and continues to learn more every day. The engineers here explain that they've tried to simulate adolescence as Wendy grows into this adult synth body, so it's not so much of a culture shock, but the reality is she's not going to feel any real emotions and won't age like everybody else. At least, that's what they think. Wendy isn't alone here though, as there are other children arriving on Neverland ready to transition. The company want Wendy to serve as the big sister for these guys and guide the kids on their journey to immortality. According to Cavalier, he's chosen children specifically because they're the perfect vessel for this journey. Their minds are way more elastic than adults and they're still growing, uttering that adult minds are too stiff. Back on board the Maginot, alarms wail across the ship. It's clear that the specimens have broken loose, shock, and the crew are being slaughtered left and right. One of the simps we saw earlier, Morrow, sends a report back to Earth about the breakout before hiding out from the xenomorph. A collision with Earth is imminent, and with the xenomorph on the loose, that's not good news for us. Whether Morrow orchestrated the specimens to break out or exactly how this occurred is still unclear given we've cut forward in time, but he does sacrifice the other crew members to the alien all the same. Over in New Siam, Prodigy City, Wendy has become obsessed with a guy called Joe. He works with Prodigy as a first responder and she watches him on the monitors. The reason for this fascination stems from the past. Now Joe is actually Marcy's brother from back in the day, and after the synth process, Prodigy told him that Marcy died. However, Wendy is still very fond of her brother, and given she still has her child brain inside this adult synth body, her idolization of her brother continues to influence her personality. However, everybody here is thrown straight into panic when the Maginot crash lands in the heart of the city. Among the first responders, who all go in with guns and weaponry, is Joe. The group immediately head to the crash site and look for survivors. On board the ship, they find bodies all over the place, but one that has managed to survive here is Morrow. He immediately speaks to Mother, the AI on board the ship, to alert Weyland HQ that they've been boarded. He's heading for the armory and intends to wait for backup. However, he soon comes across a couple of first responders, Hoyt and Anant, in the lab. There's a pretty grim scene of a creature slithering into the suit of one of the men, but Morrow doesn't see this. In fact, he holds them up at gunpoint, forcing them to drop their weapons and tying them to one of the pipes. Unfortunately, this bug attacks while they're incapable of moving and kills them both. The other group include Rashidi, Siberian and Joe, whose nickname is Hermit, and they find the cryo chamber and evidence of a chest burster. They don't see the facehugger in an adjacent chamber though and head off to investigate further. While Wendy is in the middle of various tests, she notices footage playing of Joe heading to the crash site and heads in to see Boy Cavalier. Despite the simps still being in the prototype phase and Atomines being completely against this, Cavalier decides to entertain Wendy's idea and sends her and the Lost Boys into the crash site. Wendy is determined to save her brother no matter what, which is where episode 1 comes to an end. So Alien Earth gets off to a pretty interesting start here, serving as a prequel and taking place 2 years before the events of the original movie. Now it's interesting to note here that 2120 is also the year that the USCSS Nostromo leaves Earth, so could we see that as an endpoint for this series? The show does get off to a decent start for the first 10 minutes or so, establishing the stakes and a new crew, before jumping forward in time and showing sick kids being turned into simps. I understand the desire to set the stakes here, but not beginning with a massacre or some sort of action scene 2017 feels like a missed opportunity. Unfortunately, this also brings its own set of problems, and the idea of a ship crash landing onto Earth without a single government or entity noticing the ship arriving or even trying to stop it, despite us being told specifically that the other planets in our solar system are inhabited and controlled by the different companies, feels like a pretty major plot hole. This is especially problematic given we get a lot of political maneuvering as we see the various companies vying for power. There are themes of corporatism and capitalism coming to the foreground, and larger themes about life, death and our place in the food chain of course, but it's all very surface level at this point and not particularly thought provoking. Hopefully this will change in the future. The visual callbacks, the long shots, editing and musical score have all clearly been designed specifically to give that feel of being in the alien universe, but away from the visual veil hanging over this one, the writing, inconsistent tone and haphazard acting have not instilled a lot of faith in this project. However, it's far too early to say whether this will be as good as the original movies and Alien Isolation, so we'll have to wait and see where the story goes from here. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.